I'm Tim Becker. I'm the director of the Kelley A. Bergstrom Center for Real Estate Studies, and I want to thank you all for coming to our conference this year. I'm proud to announce that once again we set a record. We had 435 registrants, and I want to thank you all for coming and supporting what we do here with the center. None of this would be possible, of course, without our sponsors, and we greatly appreciate them for helping us reach our goal of over $100,000 in sponsorship dollars to the center and the program. Please. Our platinum sponsor, BB&T, our gold sponsors, Ackerman, ARA, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bergstrom Investment Management, Duke Realty, Florida Trend, Jones Lang LaSalle, Ram Realty Services, Southeast Real Estate Business, and Wells Fargo. I want to thank our reception sponsors for a great reception last night, Covenant Capital Group, Gardner Brewer Martinez Mumford, and Starwood Mortgage Capital. Our silver sponsors, BBX Capital, Center State Bank, Cushman and Wakefield, East Group Properties, Fidelity National Title Insurance, Hallmark Partners, HFF, Highwoods, Katz, Barron, Squatero, Fouts, MetLife, Panattoni, Regency Centers, and Tavistock Development, and of course all of our bronze sponsors as well. Thank you very much for making this a successful conference. It takes a lot of dedicated people to get a conference like this done, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank our conference committee, who has done a tremendous job putting the speakers that you have up here together. Doug Ermsher was our chair this year, and I want to thank Doug for his leadership in helping us reach this success. We had Danny Finkel as our sponsorship chair, along with Scott McLaren, who did a fantastic job. Jeff Kahn, John Crossman, Michael Green, Todd Jones, Avery Clan, Al Rex, Jim Stein, Elliot Throne, and Rachel Ween. Thank you all for helping us put on such a great conference. I also want to thank the faculty and staff of the center, David Ling, Wayne Archer, Kent Malone, Pam DeMichael, Denise Stoll, our graphic design student, Vicki Hedda, and I'd really like to thank Nikki Wagner, who, for those of you who don't know, is our new assistant director, and we hired her about 30 days ago. So she was dumped right into the middle of the hornet's nest, if you will, in trying to get all the details done. So I really want to thank Nikki. She's done a fantastic job in helping pull this together at the last minute. I'm here this morning to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. Many of you in the room kind of know what we do already because you're advisory board members, you're Bergstrom Council members, you're supporters of what we do. But for those that don't, let me explain a little bit. The University of Florida offered its first real estate degree in 1945. And we've been running real estate programs in various forms for the next 69 years. The Bergstrom Center has been around for almost 40 years and was put together to help facilitate interactions between the industry, the academics, and the students at the university. We started small, but we've grown to be one of, if not the most, industry-focused programs in the country. With the help of our 150-strong industry advisory board, many of whom are in the room, we prepare the best and brightest students to be the next leaders in our industry. Our current group is no exception, and I'd like all the students in the room to stand, if you would, please. So this group of students represents all of the programs we offer, including the Nathan S. Collier Masters of Science in Real Estate program, the joint JD MSRE program, the MBA with the real estate concentration, and our undergraduate minor in real estate. And I could tell you that the MSRE students, most of which in the room are graduating May 2nd, they're actively looking for work, and so I'd encourage you to talk to them. If you know of openings, I can assure you that it's a great group of students. If you talk to those on our advisory board who have hired our students, they will tell you what a great asset they are to your organization. So please take a moment during the course of today to get to know some of those students. In addition to the development of our students, though, the center is a focus of research. Our professors are leaders in the real estate research world, and in fact, a recent journal ranked our research program the third most prolific in the world. Not in the US, but in the world. In fact, Dr. Ling and Dr. Archer wrote the book on real estate, quite literally. Their Real Estate Principles textbook, now in its 4th edition, is the most used principles textbook in the country and used by almost all of our competition. Additionally, since 2006, we've been providing our quarterly survey of emerging market trends, which is the only Florida-centric, Florida-focused survey of real estate professionals, which is free to the public and on our website. Finally, we're a center of leaders. We want to lead the industry by providing thought-provoking content that helps shape the direction of this industry in a positive way. We do this with programming like this conference and the many regional programs that we provide with the help of our tremendous support group, the Bergstrom Council. If you are not currently a member of the center, I encourage you to do so. I assure you it's a rewarding experience, but I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to talk to the other folks in the room who have been part of this center for a long period of time. Those with blue name badges, those with orange name badges, they're supporters of our center, and they can tell you how rewarding it is to be a part of. And in fact, we have a table outside near the registration desk. If you want to join the Bergstrom Council today, you can do so, and we encourage you to do so. For a small investment of $150 per year, you can become part of what we're trying to do here at the center. Thank you again for attending. It's an honor to have you here. And so we can keep the program moving, I'm going to bring up Professor David Ling with a special presentation.
Good morning, everyone. I have the privilege of announcing this year's recipient of our Alumnus of the Year Award. Each year, the real estate faculty and staff try to identify people that have had a sustained involvement with the center, with our real estate programs, and with our students. Someone who has truly done an outstanding job and committed to the university and to what we're trying to do over a long period of years. So the criteria aren't written down, but that's sort of what we're thinking about. So this year's recipient of the Alumnus of the Year Award, and sometimes it's an Alumna of the Year Award, but this year's recipient of the Alumnus of the Year Award is Rich Bezel. And Rich certainly fits those criteria. As many of you know, Rich is a partner at Ackerman & Centerfit, works out of their Miami office, and chairs their national real estate practice. He's a graduate of the University of Florida, real estate degree. His law degree is from the University of Miami. And Rick has really been here from the very beginning. We've decided that this is the 20th anniversary of our conference. We believe the first one was in 1994. And Rich, among others in the room, has truly been there from the very beginning. Back when we held the event at the University Center Hotel in Gainesville, that I think was demolished some years ago, not nearly the nice venue that this place is. And back really when we were lucky if we got 100 people to attend the conference. So things have greatly changed. And Rich has really been instrumental in that. So Rich has been a friend and an active supporter of UF Real Estate for a long number of years. Rich, we're truly grateful. And so on behalf of the real estate faculty and staff, we'd like to recognize Rich Bezel as the 2014 Alumnus of the Year.
Well, thank you very much for this. It's quite an honor. It's been a great ride. The university has been very good to me over the years. To the students that are out there, I said this a couple weeks ago to you, the Alumni Board is here for you. You should get to meet us, know us, and carry forward throughout your career and come back and serve the university when you get a chance. Thank you.
All right, my next job is to get our housing panel up here, which is going to be chaired by Brad Hunter. Brad, you ready?
Well, a theme from yesterday, come on up, guys. The theme from yesterday was uncertainty, and Dr. Linneman talked about that with regard to all kinds of real estate and the economy, and certainly in the housing market, there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unclear readings. There was a number from the government that came out just a couple of days ago which was the new home sales reading. And the number said, and I quote, that new home sales were up 9.6%, plus or minus 17.9%. Now, I know that you students have studied statistics, and you know that this means that the confidence interval crosses 0, which means you can't be confident within a 90% range that the number even changed at all. So this panel is meant to add clarity with regard to housing markets. Let me introduce my panelists. We have Ryan Marshall, second from the end there. He's the division president for Pulte for the South Florida and Naples and Fort Myers area. Is that the correct geographic boundary? So we have the perspective of one public home building company. Also, we have Mark Metheny here next to him in the middle. He is the division president for the Central Florida area, Orlando, and into Tampa market for Lennar Homes, another public home building company. And at the far end is Mori Hosseini. He is the chairman and CEO of ICI Homes, and he's also an investor that tries to get ahead of the path of growth with land purchases. And then closest to me is Bobby Julien, the CEO for Kolter, which is a land developer as well as a home builder. And they're doing projects all over the state of Florida and beyond. By way of self-introduction, I'm Brad Hunter. I'm the Director of Consulting for Metrostudy, also the Chief Economist for the company, and I run the consulting practice nationwide. We do site-specific market feasibility studies. We did 200 market studies last year. We're going to do more than 300 this year, growing very rapidly. And what we're best known for is our accurate counts, unlike the government statistics, of what's going on with the housing market. I'll give you a couple of statistics just to sort of set the framework and kind of frame up the discussion here. And then we'll go to the panelists who really know what's going on. For detached single-family homes, we counted that housing starts in the fourth quarter of last year in Central Florida were down 25%. That's quarter on quarter. Compared to a year ago, they were up 10%. So what we saw last year, and this is true throughout the state of Florida and throughout the entire country, that the first half of 2013 was extraordinarily strong for sales and home price movement, and then things kind of softened. A lot of builders called it the pause in the second half of the year, and it seems like for some the pause is still going on, but I think there's a bit of a mixed message there. And again, we'll turn to the panel for their perspective. By way of comparison, South Florida down 16% in the fourth quarter, but up 22% for the year. And then you drill down even deeper, and our count shows for St. Lucie County as one example, starts are up 114% versus last year, but of course when you go from 1 to 2, it's not very significant. Naples, Fort Myers down 24% on the quarter, flat overall for the year. Sarasota, though, up 11% in the fourth quarter and up 36% overall. Then we look at sales and traffic statistics that we track. We're seeing that traffic is still down for a lot of projects. And so we're kind of wondering now, how is the winter season turning out for builders here in Florida? And then in the rest of the country, it's not the winter season, but the spring that sort of matters. And so, you know, I bring to mind what's been going on with the weather up north. And you would think that with such a cold, harsh winter that we've gone through, that would be very helpful for the builders. So I'm going to turn now to the builders and see if anybody wants to comment on whether the weather had much of a positive impact on the season so far this year, and just how things are going in general. Who wants to be first?
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, considering the weather up north, and frankly the weather we've had here in Florida, which has been generally very, very nice. Hotels are extraordinarily busy, restaurants are busy. I think tourism is at an all-time high in the state of Florida. It's pretty amazing that home sales in general are sort of flat, traffic is down a little bit, and it's soft. It's clearly not what we would have expected, considering all the awesome factors that has come together, you know, that we thought this was going to be just the most incredible winter, but it's not panning out that way yet. But hopefully March is going to be, it's around the corner, it's going to be a great month.
Who else has a perspective to share?
I would say ours is very similar. I think that each weekend we're kind of expecting to jump out and start to have that big hit because everything is, you know, appears to be well positioned for some nice activity, but we just haven't seen it yet.
Now, Ryan, your experience is not quite the same, is that right? For some of your communities anyway.
Yeah, I think there's certain spots, especially in South Florida, that are brighter than others, but our feeling is very similar to what Bobby mentioned. The roads are packed, the restaurants are full. It's hard to get a reservation on a Monday night anywhere, even at KFC or Taco Bell, it seems, at times. So things are crowded, but we're not necessarily seeing that translate into above average traffic in the sales centers. People are certainly buying homes. It's still a good time to buy. Prices are up pretty substantially over prior year, but in terms of volume, it's been relatively flat, as I think you pointed out.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's a clue that the Taco Bells and Burger Kings are the restaurants that are the busiest. So how are you combating this weakness? Are you providing some incentive programs, or are you just, you know, what strategy are you employing?
Kleenex.
Kleenex to cry yourself to sleep. Reminds me of an old joke. The two builders are talking to each other. One of them says, "Oh, the market's so bad, it keeps me up at night, I can't sleep." The other one says, "What do you mean? I sleep like a baby." He says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "I wake up every 3 hours and cry." Are we going through that? Is that what's happening? Okay, so, you know, one of the things that gets a lot of discussion is there's a community that we track along with all the others that is far away the most active community in the entire country, and it's located right here in Central Florida. It's the Villages, and they do about 4,500 housing starts a year, even in today's market, but they're going to be running out of land pretty soon. So then the question comes up, well, what's going to be the replacement for the Villages? And I'm wondering, you know, a lot of you guys are involved in selling homes to the active adult market. Do you have a perspective on where that demand is going to go in the future, and what's the overall demand going to be for retirement housing in the future?
Sure. We don't think that anybody will replace the Villages. We think that there's likely a good chance you'll start to see resales increase in the Villages to fill some of that demand. Certainly there'll be some increase in demand in some of the locations like Claremont, Lakeland, and some of the other markets that have traditionally competed with the Villages. But we think it's likely we'll see some more resale activity in the Villages itself. It's just not replaceable.
And Bobby, I know you have the Crestwind program where you're targeting active adults. What's your outlook for the active adult from your perspective?
I mean, I think talking about trends, we believe anyway, there's no question that the baby boomers and the active adults, there's a certain portion that want to move into a Crestwind community, and we think it's on the uprise. It is an area of the market, though, that can slow down a lot because nobody is forced. It's not like you're buying a regular house and you just had another child and you need another bedroom, or you just got married. I mean, people can delay selling their residence and moving to an active adult community. So when the economy slows down, or when people, you know, become concerned about the future, sales do slow down a lot. But big picture, long-term trends, we love it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Of course, there's a lot of discussion, a lot of emphasis on the tourism and the retirees in Florida, but we really need the sort of middle-class families, working-class people to come back into the market and start buying homes more. Does anybody have a perspective on where things are going in terms of kind of creating the kinds of jobs in the state of Florida that will help the middle class sort of first-time buyer and first-time move-up buyer?
I'll help with that. Good morning. I'll take a point. You know, we have 12,000 acres in Jacksonville, actually right on I-10 and 301, on the same road as Villages is. We think we are better situated where it is much closer to Jacksonville, closer to the airports, closer to the ocean. And we have approved for 20,000 units, 5 million square feet of commercial, and we still have 1/3 of our property to be zoned. The catch there is, at Villages, you know, is that they have such infrastructure, So in order for you to do, get the first dollar back, you have to invest in infrastructure of no less than $100 million. And so at some point, somebody will make this investment and start another villages. Now, answering your question, there's a huge change is going on in Florida. I'm the chairman of Board of Governors for university system in Florida, which we manage 12 universities, including University of Florida. Some years ago, we did a study, and we come to find out that from outside, businesses don't take Florida serious for business. They say it's a great place for tourism. We had 95 million people came to Florida last year. It's a great place for retirement. We had 19.6 million people in Florida as of end of 2013, and we are now third largest state in the country. It's just that the count doesn't get announced until June or July. So there was well over 300,000 increase in population, and we see a growing numbers on number of retirees moving. So there was a part missing, and that is skilled workers. That's why businesses go to the state, that they can hire skilled workers. So we came up with two plans. One is what we call preeminence, and the preeminence, which is University of Florida, Florida State. The guys at University of Florida, University of Florida today is number 14 in a public university in the country. We came up with a law last year that helped University of Florida and FSU for UF to become top 10. Believe me, going from 14 to 10, top 10 university in the country is huge to do. We are giving University of Florida $150 million. University of Florida themselves are raising $800 million to be able to hire enough number of people to go through all the things they need to do to make the changes. On the other side, we also came up with a plan, to our universities, our STEM graduates are about 15 to 17%. We're trying to move them up to 25%, and we came up with a performance funding. If you perform, you get funded. So education in Florida is going through a wholesale change, and I believe within the next 5 years, you see a big change as far as creating the skilled workers for businesses from outside Florida. So we have three-legged stool. We have the retirement, we have the tourism, and also we have the skilled workers for businesses. You see businesses are incubators around big universities. If you go to University of North Carolina, you go to Harvard and MITs, and all of them, you see a huge number of business go around those. So that's our game plan to bring business to Florida, and we're very optimistic because government is putting lots of money. This year be at least additional, I'm talking about new money, of almost $400 or $500 million into our system.
Well, it's important to emphasize education, and it's great to be able to talk about that in this forum. And by the way, for you students, we are hiring, so come up and give me a resume if you want. So let me ask you this. Affordability is on everybody's minds these days. Land prices are at record levels, and home prices are still going up, but still nowhere near peak prices. What's in store for the consumer, especially the kind of middle class home buyer, as home prices move up, and especially as land prices force builders to consider higher prices?
The way I see it, talking about, we talked about the A properties, B and C's, it clearly shows that the B's are becoming A's now. B's are becoming A's, and I have one of my properties, that I want to sell a parcel of it. We have a 2,400 unit project in Jacksonville. I had no less than 8-10 offers, and the price that they paid us it was way over our expectation because it's a AAA property. So if you have a really A site, the price is unlimited, and the customers, that want to buy, they're willing to pay the higher price. Once you go into B's and C's, that's where the issue comes, the replacement cost. You can go and buy a house, further down, and it's be much cheaper than buying it from a builder. So that issue is still in existence in a sub-market. So we still have to get, those homes that were foreclosed or owned by somebody else, that the replacement cost still does not get to where a new home builder can sell it. So once that gets out of the way, I think, you will see the B's and C's are moving up into the system.
Yeah, I think keeping a cap on home prices, though, is going to be directly related to interest rates, too. Right now, we've increased our home prices a lot. I think they're gonna have to flatten out, which is going to keep a cap on land, because with higher interest rates, especially at the lower end of the market, I mean, people just are going to be able to afford less or stretch more to have the same. But we can't continue with these home price increases, as far as I can see.
But do you see the being able to get a loan? I think, to me, the way I see it, at one point we used to have a partnership with a bank, that's here in this room, that we gave them the files on Friday. By Monday, they gave us approval. Now you give them a file on Friday, it'll be 6 Friday later, they come up with a list of, So I think getting our customers approved, it's a huge deal.
It is. I mean, banks have definitely tortured a lot of the customers in the last couple of years, for sure. But at the same time, it does often amaze me at the people that want to buy homes with just the sketchiest credit. It's just amazing the stuff that, goes on to try to get them approved. But if somebody genuinely has a good credit rating and some money, I mean, we can get them mortgages. It takes longer. Banks do more due diligence, and as I say, they torture them more. But you can absolutely make it happen.
So as we think about the A locations, which would be the ones that are closest to employment and services and the kind of choicest neighborhoods, and then B, a little bit further away, do you think it's likely that land prices will kind of top out and stay level on the A's, and then the B's, and maybe even the C plus properties will kind of come up faster, or do you think that it'll be more likely that the A's will go up faster because they're in shorter supply?
Well, definitely A will go faster, if you're asking me that. And the value of land, it's a development cost. Development costs never went down. I mean, we developed a lot of land. Development costs really didn't like the price of a home. We used to sell a home at $500,000. The same home now we sell them, for $300 and some thousand. So the price of homes has come down. One thing hasn't gone down is the development cost. If it, maybe it hasn't gone up, but certainly hasn't gone down. If you get that under control, you will see an increase in the value of the land, other than A sites, which is at the height.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Brad, I would just add to that, I think the A's have always been valuable, and they've certainly increased in value over the last year or two. There's not a lot of A's left. And if there are, you are going to pay top dollar for them. I'll give you an example of a property I personally sold about 3 years ago that I would call a B minus or a C location, and I did a very happy dance the day I sold it for $3.8 million. It just traded again for $14.5 million. Very, very huge increase. Somebody took a lot of risk. I was happy to have it gone because I was tired of carrying the debt and the HOA expense and some of the other ancillary soft costs. But to go from $3.8 million to $14.5 in a 2.5-year period, some people did very well with that.
But does it go to $16 million in another year, or does
a property like that could go to $16 million tomorrow?
Yeah. All right. So I'd like to open up the floor to questions from the audience. If you want to start thinking about a question, or if you have one now, maybe. Okay, I see one. Yes, sir.
One of the big factors in the multifamily boom is the belief that everyone's moving away from the American dream of home ownership. What's been your perspective on the front lines of selling and developing homes? Have you experienced a real fundamental change, or was it really driven more by the economy and more
So just to quickly recap for anybody that couldn't hear, the question is the multifamily boom and what's the panel's perspective on that?
I would say that I think there's a little bit of a shift in the mentality of the buyer that comes through the door now. I think they recognize that there's a lot of people that have lost money on their home. They don't look at it anymore as that, surefire retirement investment that they once did. I still think that the dream is still there. I think we still see people that want the white picket fence. They want the picture in front of the home the day that they sign their purchase agreement. But there is a little bit of shift in the mentality there. They don't seem to really have that same, I can't, this is a no loss situation for me. They recognize the realities of the past few years.
I mean, I think also the multifamily rental boom that you've seen is also due to the fact that the financial institutions, both on the debt and the equity side, didn't lose any or a lot of money on the multifamily side. So there was equity available to developers so that they could earn fees, because fees make the world go around as it relates to real estate. So those dollars were available, and it's just sort of heightened the boom. And the guys that got in early doing that have done very well, and so the party continues to roll forward, on the multifamily side.
And it kind of comes to mind the trend that a lot of people have been going and renting apartments instead of buying new homes, and there was a consideration of will people just permanently shift their preference towards renting as opposed to buying. But surveys that we've seen recently indicate that people eventually do want to own their own home, and so I think that the apartment boom, it will probably start to taper off some, and we'll see a kind of a return to the traditional mix between single family and multifamily in the future. Any other questions from the audience before yes, sir.
Yesterday, The Economist was saying that there's basically a 2.2 million shortage of single-family and townhome condo properties throughout the U.S. So yesterday, the Economist was saying there's a 1.2 million single-family home shortage and a 1 million shortage of kind of condo properties throughout the U.S. and basically that discretionary spend or the spending on housing that's kind of all-time lows. From what the Economist was showing us, demand should be through the roof. Maybe you guys can give your opinion on kind of what the stats are showing versus what your thoughts are from that perspective.
Yeah, I'll just kind of echo that question in the sense of we track household formation rates, and household formation rates are increasing again, although they were, by one reading from the government numbers, they were very low throughout 2013, but by another number, they're looking high. And so if household formation rates are increasing, and by the way, let me explain what a household formation rate means. That means that anybody who goes out and moves into their own home, whether it's a rental or single family or condo or whatever it might be, that is a household formation. So if two people are married and they get divorced, that turns one household into two. If the 29-year-old who's still living with mom and dad or moved back in with mom and dad moves back out again, that creates an additional household, and that's actually a big force for household growth right now, and clearly that is happening more and more as the economy improves. So you would think that demand for housing would be increasing at an incredibly fast rate. So now how does the panel see that in terms of their own business?
I'll give you a little, I was with John Gray, the head of real estate for Bergstrom. They're the largest owners of single-family home, 44,000. And he said two things. A, he says, they've looked at it. He said there is a 1.5 million household formation every year. He said clearly it shows that there's an increase in demand. And the second thing he said, I said, so where do you see it? Because a lot of people you talk to, they say, well, we're in the middle of the cycle now. He said, we are absolutely in the first inning. And if you're in the first inning, and if he's right, and by the way, he's been right for the last 30 years, they've been very successful, $80 billion in equity. If you're in the first inning, so we still got some ways to go. I think the demand is going to come back. Psychology, one of the things I think we home builders should do, hire psychologists, so kind of tell us where the market is going, because psychology plays a big role in a family decide to buy a home or not to buy a home and get in apartments. But I clearly see that, you know, the market, the mortgage is still being tight. Interest rate is low. I mean, I remember in 1979 or 80, SunTrust gave me a 30 million, 12% for my customers. You know, that weekend we sold all of it at 12%. You know, we're so low. I think the problem is all these homeowners that lost their home, they have issue with it, and the down payment is becoming a big issue under the new law, especially that just that passed. So these are the issues that all would work out throughout the year, and I agree. We had a very good end of the year. When it came to the first of the year, like last couple of months, I mean, it just fizzled down. I mean, we're surprised, but who knows? Hopefully, March will be the answer.
Yeah, Brad, I would just tag on to what Mori said about buyer psychology. One of the things that I find most fascinating in tracking the trends of our buyers is looking at the Consumer Confidence Index. And I find that is a better predictor than any of the other statistics that are out there about what we can expect for demand, specifically or especially in South Florida. It's a discretionary spend for the majority of their buyers, or the majority of the buyers that are either retiring or they're buying a vacation home. And the way they feel about our economy and about the way the government and the way the nation is going has more impact than I think we give it credit for in the buying decisions that are made. I would just tag on to the demand side to say, you know, we can argue that the housing demand in the United States is 1.2 to 1.4 million when you consider new household formation and obsolescence. We clearly overbuilt as a building industry for a 3 to 4 year period. We've gone through a 3 to 4 year period of underbuilding what the demand is. Hopefully, I think we're reaching a point where we're maybe perhaps back at equilibrium. To the Economist point, maybe we're actually underserved right now. But the real estate industry and then housing as a small subset of that is a very, very large ship. And moving that Titanic takes some time. I think we're seeing very good momentum on our side, but I don't know that it happens overnight.
I agree. I think we would, our research would indicate we'd probably be at 1.2 million instead of 1 million, if not for the lack of well-situated lots, as well as labor and other constraints in the production process. Any other questions? Yes, I see one in the middle there.
Versus the traditional family?
So the question is, do you see a difference in demand between active adult and the single family, or rather the family buyer, given the changes in demographics?
Yeah, I'll maybe just throw in a few thoughts on that. One of the brands that the Pulte Group has in our family of brands is Del Webb. We specifically cater to the active adult and the baby boomer. There are 80 some odd million people over the age of 55 in the United States today. It is a huge piece of our population, if not the largest. I do believe, however, the demographics and the preferences of the active adult buyer are clearly changing. They're working longer, they're retiring different than the baby boomer of yesteryear. We're finding that not as many of the retirees are wanting to move to Florida or to the southwest part of the United States to retire in the Sun Belt. A lot of these baby boomers want to retire closer to home, closer to family, closer to their children, closer to their established relationships. They may want to downsize, they want to change the way that they live. We're not seeing as many of them want to do it in what we historically looked at as the villages or some of the large Sun City communities that have been developed in the past.
I would say that we've got, in Central Florida, I've got 3 age-restricted communities, and I would say that we have seen a little bit better activity in those 3 communities, both from a traffic and sales standpoint, than we have in some of our more primary housing communities. And so it's not enough to indicate whether that's a real strong trend that we can bank on, but we have seen decent activity in those 3 communities year to date.
Yeah, the retiree home buyers have one thing that the first-time home buyers don't, which is equity. So they can either downsize and take their current house, might be up in New York, they sell it for $800,000, and they can buy a fantastic house from one of these fine people for, you know, $400,000 or something, and put the rest of the money in the bank. And that's a lot of what has always driven housing demand from the retiree segment. Any other questions? Yes, back here.
Good morning. The home builders in Southwest Florida have all expressed concern over a labor shortage. Is this a statewide issue, and how do you plan to deal with that?
I mean, the labor shortage it's a national issue, but it definitely affects Florida in a big way, and did last year, last spring, last summer, last fall, end of year. There was a lot of pressure on labor, but you know, the subs have started to staff up and everything, and there has been a slowdown in starts now. So as much it was something we talked about like all the time, let's say in November or October of last year, it's a little bit less of an issue right now because of the market. I don't know if you guys have seen the same thing.
Yeah, same thing, Bobby. I am nervous about this coming summer, however. Most of our businesses are pretty seasonal, meaning we sell the majority of our homes January to May. They get built in the back half of the year, which is when you know, there are the most homes in production, and we put the most pressure on the labor market. Last year was tough, and it was more prevalent with block masons, roofers, and drywallers. And I think as we've seen labor prices increase, they are being able to, the subcontractors are able to attract new labor to the market, but it is a little bit of a slow recovery.
It's not a lot of fun laying block in Florida in the middle of the summer, right? Yeah, David.
In thinking about labor, Bobby, so we struggled a little bit when we saw that increase of 10, 15, 20% in 2013, the first half of the year. But if we go back to the mean, we go back to 1.2 million starts a year, are you concerned that labor won't or can't come back to the United States that maybe left? There was a major structural shift when we dropped so far. Is anyone concerned that we just can't get back to that labor pool that's necessary to get back to million plus?
So the question is, when we get back to normalized housing starts of over 1.2 million, which is still well below normal, normal would probably end up more like 1.6 million, can we, with the labor shortages, get there with these constraints?
I mean, I agree. I totally agree. I mean, you can clearly see the Mexicans that did all the work, you know, they're not there. They're not there right now, and it's so difficult now to come across the border. So there will be an issue. So I want to put a big sign in Florida and say, buy a home now. The price of property eventually is going to go up big time, and then the shortage of labor, you know, that within the next 12, 18 months, you're going to see, in my mind, an escalation of, you know, price of homes.
Right, and it doesn't only affect the home business. If you look around, you know, think about 2005, the institutional construction that was going on, the commercial office, industrial, and then you had retail construction, you had schools. Like, just think of all the construction, condos. I mean, we're just getting back in the condo business in South Florida, and some residential and a little bit of commercial, but it's a fraction of what was going on, you know, back 10 years ago. So all that needs the same labor too. And typically, you know, the commercial pays a little more, so that further impacts the resi side, low rise.
It's got to be getting crazy in Miami-Dade, where there's a lot of new towers being built all of a sudden. Yes, back here.
Good morning. I'm from China, and we are the largest agent for Lennar Home in China. So I have one question, and what's your point of view, gentlemen, for the foreign investment coming to the States? Because to my understanding, I noticed from the analyst report, I understand that quite a lot increase for the past 2 years for the foreign investment into U.S. market. And I want to check what's your point of view. You welcome, you feel moderate, you feel what's that? I don't care. So I want to understand a little bit more about. your point of view?
Foreign investment in housing. What do you guys think?
Well, I guess I'll say thank you. And I'll also, we have seen that. We have seen foreign investments both from South America and China in particular, Canadians as well, has been a pretty dramatic increase in our business the last couple of years. And we do anticipate that continues to grow. We have developed some programs to really get more involved in a number of countries outside of the United States, and we expect that to continue. I think the stability of the real estate market overall in the U.S. as compared to some alternatives overseas points to us as a good place to put money.
A little bit more. And for example, for American market, for majority of the Chinese investors, they consider it's like a jungle. Actually, they just follow a kind of chant, or I prefer to say sometimes it's like follow a kind of rumor when they blindly penetrate into the American market. But starting from later half of last year, I noticed there are some big guys started to really make some actions. Like next week, I will receive a group of 8 or 9 persons from China. They will fly into San Francisco, and within the next 6 weeks, they're going to spend $1 billion US only in San Francisco. But I consider they don't really understand what is the proper way and what kind of investment they should invest. They just say, okay, we just need, according to our data received, we just understand San Francisco is the good place, and we want to purchase something there, and our first try order is 100 townhome or single-family homes there. That's it. But when I want to guidance them to some other properties like commercial properties or land, and they have no idea. So can you share with me a little bit more how I can give them proper guidance to invest in American?
Well, send them over to my place. I'll be happy to help them. We'll be more than delighted.
I mean, your clients that you're speaking of, are they institutional clients or they are individuals, like retail?
There is a very clear trend from China. Before, some of the real estate companies in China, they started to penetrate into American market. Now, it become a kind of fashion or trend for a lot of Chinese private companies. As you know, Chinese government, starting from last year, they control so firmly on the Chinese local market, and the local market starting to crash from last month. And you can never imagine for Chinese people, they need to pay more than 60–70% of the down payment when they want to purchase the second home. And for all the major cities, they even don't allow to purchase second home. If you stay in Florida, you want to purchase something in California, you are not allowed. So there are a lot of private companies in China. They have huge money in their account, and they want to move to America. So this is what I see clearly. I see there's kind of trend this year.
I was out in Orange County, California recently, and I went and had some business meetings, and while I was there, toured some of the residential communities there, and I was very surprised to find out that there are master plan communities there where 70% of the buyers are Chinese. And so it's very interesting to see that there are pockets and certain areas, and they tend to be very upscale, very beautiful neighborhoods where the Chinese and other Asian buyers are coming. We're seeing in South Florida more of an influence is coming from South America, and so we're seeing a lot of people from Brazil and Colombia and Argentina, Venezuela buying properties in South Florida. And it's interesting, you talked about the large down payments that are required. In South America, it's very common for people that buy a residential property to put down 50, 60, 70% of the money up front. And so now the developers that are developing condos in Miami sometimes are requiring 50% or more of a down payment before the property gets even put under construction. And so in essence, they get almost all of the money that's needed to build the building from the deposits, which makes for a pretty good business model. So that's been a fascinating aspect of foreign investment.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. I think so far we've been talking about the basic fundamentals of the housing industry in the U.S., and that's great. We talked about supply and demand and from domestic as well as abroad, as which is heard. But I'd like to kind of switch the gear into looking at homes and products, and very rarely do we have a panel of all the leaders in the housing industry, pretty much, to talk about the role of innovation in the homes as a product itself. So to give you an example, for example, look at the phones, for example, cell phone. From the time of Alexander Bell, the turn of the century, to today of the iPhone, the pace of technology have changed rapidly to the point that you can't even recognize the basic similarities between the products today and the product in the beginning. So with that being said, you know, the turn of the century, we still have houses, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, closet, and I'm sure there's a lot of technologies going to the modern homes today that will capture the demand of the buyers. But so far in the industry, I think the biggest drive of the supply side was securing the A locations, land positions in the A locations, and tailor the houses to meet the demands, as well as responding to interest rates or economic constraints out there. But can you talk a bit more about how do you, as the leaders in the housing industry in the U.S., look at the homes itself as a product and apply the technological innovations into designing that product? Thank you.
What are you guys doing to tweak up your homes with the latest technological advances?
I guess, you know, probably where we've come the furthest is on energy efficiency. We've focused on that quite a bit, I think, as an industry, as we've seen more demand for both green building practices as well as really ways for homeowners to save money. I think from a product standpoint, we probably haven't, well, not probably, we certainly haven't evolved near as quickly as most of the technological advances. The way we do it is we really listen to what customer demand is. You know, we don't spend a lot of money on research in terms of advances. We do attend Builders Show. We look at the innovative products that some of our suppliers are working on, but we were really focused more at the, call it the ground level, where we try to find out what our customer wants, what they're willing to pay for, and we'll evolve our product that way.
Go ahead.
The way I'd answer your question, I think you're right. Frankly, I think there's more consumer research that goes into some of the products that go into our homes. A refrigerator or an oven or a microwave, for example, frankly probably has more consumer research that goes into some of those products that sell for a fraction of the price of the home, and very little consumer research that goes into the home itself. Our company's trying to change that. Over the last couple of years, we've really changed gears and focused on consumer innovation and listening to the consumer. If you're interested and you have time, go to YouTube and Google Pulte Homes. You'll see some interesting videos on there of what we're doing to listen to the consumer all the way from the very beginning of the design process. We're changing our design process from the ground up. Normally you go to an architect and you have an architect design a house, and the architect is telling you how someone wants to live. I love architects and we need them, but frankly they don't know how you want to live. And so we're trying to change the way that we design from the beginning, and our research shows that consumers are willing to pay, or will be willing to pay, more money for a well-designed house in an inferior location than they will for a poorly designed house in the best location.
Yeah, I think obviously real estate is very different than technology, and if you think about even tech companies, you know, they like to operate in 100-year-old brick and beam buildings if they can, right? And so it is quite different, the real estate. Having said that, people have evolved in the way they want to live. Probably the biggest change in the last 20 years is, you know, fewer rooms, bigger rooms, great room plans. A lot of houses are doing away with formal living rooms because people are like, I've never used it, so it's 20 years ago, you would say, we're going to build a 6,000-foot house with no living room, like no formal living room. You would have been, are you kidding? Today, you can absolutely do that. We built a house for a lady, 8,500 feet, no dining room, no living room, because she said, I never used it in all my other houses. I don't want it. So those things are evolving, you know, open kitchen plans. I mean, there have been a lot of changes, but at the end of the day, the houses, you know, they are made out of sticks and bricks and a roof over your head. You know, it can only change so much. Technology is obviously dramatically different.
Everybody, please stay in your seats for the next panel. We are going to roll without a break into the next discussion. I would like to thank my panel for our housing discussion. Thank you very much. And